Imagine this. You're working the graveyard shift at a gas station. 3:47 a.m. No cars for the last 2 hours. Then you see him, a man, standing perfectly still, under a broken streetlight, staring directly at you, for 45 minutes. Tonight, 4 night shift workers share what they saw when the pumps were empty. Hello, little ravens. Welcome back to the archive. If you survived tonight, hit subscribe. Let's begin. My name is Marcus, and I worked the overnight shift at a gas station in rural Nevada for about 8 months. This happened during my 3rd week on the job back in 2019. The station sat right off Highway 50, the loneliest road in America, they call it. Most nights I'd see maybe 5 or 6 cars between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. The rest of the time it was just me, the fluorescent lights, and the desert stretching out in every direction. I didn't mind the quiet at first. It was a Tuesday night, sometime around 2:30 in the morning. I was restocking cigarettes behind the counter when I heard the door chime. I looked up expecting to see a trucker, or maybe someone passing through. Instead, I saw a woman standing just inside the doorway. She wore a long white dress that looked old-fashioned, like something from maybe the 1950s. Her hair hung down past her shoulders, dark and wet like she'd just stepped out of the shower. The weird thing was her feet. She wasn't wearing any shoes, and I could see dirt caked between her toes. The floor around her started getting wet, little puddles forming where she stood. I asked if I could help her. She didn't respond right away, just stared at me with these completely blank eyes. Then she smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes at all. She asked if we had a phone she could use. Her voice sounded wrong, like she was speaking from the bottom of a well. I pointed to the payphone outside and told her it should still work. She shook her head slowly and said she needed to use the one behind the counter. Said it was an emergency. Something about the way she said emergency made my skin crawl. I told her I wasn't supposed to let customers back here, but she could use the payphone for free. She just kept staring at me with that empty smile. Then she asked what time we closed. I said we're open 24 hours. She nodded like that's exactly what she wanted to hear. Then she turned and walked back outside without another word. I watched her through the window. She didn't go to the payphone. She didn't go to a car. She just walked past the gas pumps and disappeared into the darkness beyond the lights. I tried to shake it off and went back to stocking shelves. About 20 minutes later, the door chimed again. It was the same woman, still dripping wet, still barefoot. She came right up to the counter this time and asked the exact same question. If we had a phone she could use. Same flat voice, same empty smile. I told her I'd already said she could use the payphone outside. She tilted her head to the side like she was confused. Then she asked what time we closed. I felt my stomach drop because this was the exact same conversation we just had. Word for word. I told her again that we're open all night. She nodded and turned around and walked back outside. Same path, past the pumps, into the dark. I stood there watching, my heart pounding, waiting to see if she'd come back. 20 minutes passed. The door chimed. She walked in, dripping water, barefoot, wearing that same dress. Asked if we had a phone. I didn't answer this time. I just stared at her, trying to understand what was happening. She asked what time we closed. Her smile got wider, but her eyes stayed completely dead. I told her to leave. She didn't move, just stood there dripping on my floor, staring at me. Then she said something that made my blood freeze. She said she used to work here, long time ago. Said she was working alone one night when someone came in. Her smile disappeared. She said she never left. Then she turned and walked outside again. I grabbed my phone and called my manager. Told him I needed someone to come in right now, that something was seriously wrong. He thought I was overreacting, but said he'd come check it out. While I waited, I watched the security camera monitor. I could see all 4 pumps, the parking lot, the road. The woman wasn't anywhere on the cameras. 20 minutes later, the door chimed. I looked up at the monitor first this time. Nobody was coming through the door on the screen. But when I looked up at the actual door, she was standing there, dripping wet, barefoot, smiling. I ran to the back office and locked myself in. I could hear the door chime over and over. Every 20 minutes exactly. My manager found me there 2 hours later. The sun was coming up by then. I quit that same morning. Before I left, I asked him if anyone had ever died working there. His face went pale. He told me a woman drowned in a flash flood about 15 years ago. She'd been working the night shift alone. Her car got swept away in the parking lot. They found her 3 days later still wearing her work uniform. The station kept her photo in the back office. When my manager showed it to me, I almost threw up. It was her, the woman in the white dress. Except in the photo, she was smiling for real. Her eyes were alive. She looked happy. I never went back to that gas station. But sometimes late at night, I think about her still walking in through that door. Every 20 minutes, looking for a phone, asking what time we close, never leaving. 20 minutes. Always 20 minutes? That's not random. That's how long it took for the water to fill her lungs. Marcus thought he was talking to a ghost asking for help. But she wasn't asking. She was showing him what happened. Over and over. The same loop. The same 20 minutes. And here's what terrifies me most. She told him she never left. She didn't mean the gas station. She meant that night. She's still drowning. Still dying. Still looking for someone to hear her. Every single night. Forever. I'm Rachel, and this happened when I was 19 years old, working at a Shell station in rural Montana. It was my first real job, and I needed the money for college. The overnight shift paid an extra $2 an hour, so I took it. My second week on the job, I was alone from midnight to 6 a.m. The station had 8 security cameras covering every angle of the property. 4 outside watching the pumps and parking lot. 4 inside covering the aisles and register. Around 1:30 a.m., I was cleaning the coffee machine when I noticed something on the monitor. Camera 3, the one facing the back entrance, showed a man standing at the door. He was just standing there, not moving, staring directly at the camera. I walked to the back to check, but nobody was there. When I came back to the register, I looked at the monitor again. The man was still on camera 3, still staring, but the door behind me was empty. I figured the camera was glitching or showing old footage. I made a note to tell my manager in the morning. Then I saw him move. On the monitor, the man raised his hand and waved at the camera, slowly, deliberately. I spun around to look at the actual door. Nobody there. My heart started racing. I checked all 8 camera feeds. Cameras 1, 2, 4 through 8 showed exactly what I could see with my own eyes. Empty pumps, empty aisles, empty parking lot. But camera 3 showed the man still standing at the back door. Now he was closer to the camera, his face taking up more of the screen. His eyes were completely black, no whites at all. I called my manager, but it went straight to voicemail. I thought about calling the police, but what would I even say? There's a man on my camera who isn't really there. I decided to unplug camera 3. Maybe rebooting it would fix whatever was wrong. I went to the back office where all the camera equipment was kept. That's when I heard the knocking. 3 loud knocks on the back door. I froze. The back door was 15 feet away from me. I looked at the monitor in the office. Camera 3 showed the man's face pressed against the glass. His mouth was open impossibly wide, like his jaw was dislocated. 3 more knocks, louder this time. I ran back to the register and locked myself behind the counter. The knocking continued, steady and rhythmic, every few seconds. Then it stopped. complete silence. I watched the monitors, terrified of what I'd see next. Camera 3 went black. Just static. Then camera 4 went black. Then camera 5. One by one, every camera died until only camera 1 was left. The one pointed at the register. The one pointed at me. I looked up at camera 1 above my head. The red recording light was still on. I looked at the monitor. On the screen, I could see myself standing behind the register. But I wasn't alone. The man was standing right behind me. His hand was reaching toward my shoulder. I spun around. Nobody there. I looked back at the monitor. On the screen, his hand was touching my shoulder now. I could see his fingers, long and gray, resting on my uniform. I felt nothing, but I watched his hand squeeze. On the monitor, I saw myself flinch, but I didn't feel it. His face leaned closer to my ear on the screen. His mouth moved like he was whispering something. I couldn't hear anything. Then all the cameras came back online at once. Every single one. All 8 feeds showed normal views of the gas station. No man anywhere. I checked camera 3. Empty back door. I walked back there to make sure. The door was locked from the inside, just like I'd left it. But on the floor, right in front of the door, was a wet handprint. Fingers spread wide, pressed into the concrete. The print was too large to be human, fingers at least 7 inches long. I quit the next morning. Told my manager the job wasn't for me. He didn't seem surprised. He said 3 other people quit the overnight shift that year. All of them reported problems with camera 3. All of them saw the same man. The gas station closed down 6 months later. Someone bought the property and tore the whole building down. I drove past it once, just empty dirt lot now. But sometimes I still wonder if he's there, standing where the back door used to be, waiting for the cameras to turn back on, waiting for someone to see him, waiting to be let in. Camera 3. Rachel thought she was seeing a glitch, a malfunction in the system. But what if the camera was working perfectly? What if it was showing exactly what was there, and her eyes were the ones lying? He touched her on that screen. She watched his hand squeeze her shoulder. And here's what I can't stop thinking about. She saw herself flinch. Her body knew he was there. Her body reacted, but her mind couldn't process it. 3 other workers saw him too. All quit. All left before he could finish whatever he was trying to do. The question isn't what he wanted. The question is, what happens when someone doesn't leave? My name is David and I worked overnight at a truck stop gas station in Wyoming for 2 years. This happened during winter of 2021, middle of January. The station had a small diner attached, but we closed the kitchen at midnight and I worked alone until 6 a.m. Around 3:30 in the morning, I was mopping the floor when I heard tapping on the front window. I looked up and saw a man standing outside, pressed against the glass. He was wearing a thick winter coat and his breath was fogging up the window. I walked closer and he smiled at me. He gestured like he wanted to come in, pointing at the door. I shook my head and pointed at the closed sign. He kept smiling and tapping. Then he pulled out his wallet and pressed it against the glass. I could see cash inside, looked like several $20 bills. He mouthed the words, "Just need gas," and pointed toward the pumps. I hesitated because we were technically closed, but the pumps ran 24 hours with card payment. I pointed at the card reader on the pump. He shook his head and kept tapping the wallet against the glass. Then he pointed at his car, parked by pump 3. It was an old sedan, maybe from the early 2000s, covered in snow. I couldn't see anyone else in the car from where I stood. The man kept smiling and tapping. Something about his smile bothered me. Too wide, too friendly for 3 a.m. in negative-degree weather. I yelled through the glass that he needed to use a card. He stopped smiling. His face went completely blank. Then he pressed his entire face against the window, nose and lips flattened against the glass. I stepped back, my heart racing. He stayed like that for maybe 10 seconds. Then he slowly peeled his face away and walked toward his car. I watched him get in the driver's seat. The car didn't start. He just sat there, staring at the steering wheel. 5 minutes passed. He didn't move. The car didn't turn on. No exhaust coming from the tailpipe. I went back to mopping, but kept glancing at the window. He was still sitting in his car, completely motionless. 10 minutes. 15. Still not moving. I started to worry. Maybe something was actually wrong. Maybe he was having a medical emergency. I grabbed my coat and walked outside. The cold hit me immediately. Brutal wind cutting through my jacket. I walked toward pump 3, watching the car. The windows were completely fogged up from the inside. I knocked on the driver's window. No response. I knocked harder. Nothing. I wiped the fog away with my sleeve to look inside. The car was empty. No driver. No one in any of the seats. The doors were locked. I checked the back doors, all locked. The trunk was closed. I looked around the parking lot. Fresh snow was falling, and I could see my own footprints from the station to the car. But there were no other footprints anywhere. Not from the car to the building. Not from the car to the road. The snow around the sedan was completely undisturbed, except where I'd walked. I ran back inside and locked the door. I watched the car through the window for the next hour. It never moved. No one came back to it. When my shift ended at 6 a.m., I told the morning guy about the abandoned car. We walked out together to check it. The car was gone. Not towed, not driven away. Just gone. The snow where it had been parked showed nothing. No tire tracks. No footprints. Just smooth snow like nothing had ever been there. The morning guy laughed and said I must have imagined it from being tired. But I checked the security footage later. It showed everything. The man at the window. Him walking to his car. The car sitting there for an hour. But here's what made me quit 2 weeks later. When I zoomed in on the footage of him at the window, I could see through the glass behind him. I could see his car at pump 3 in the reflection. And I could see someone sitting in the back seat. A woman, staring directly at the camera. Her mouth open like she was screaming. But when I watched the footage of me walking to the car, the back seat was empty. I never found out who they were. I never saw that car again. But I know what I saw in that reflection. And I know she was trying to tell me something. The woman in the back seat. David didn't see her when he walked to the car, but the camera caught her reflection. Mouth open, screaming silently. And then they both vanished, car and all, like they were never there. Here's what haunts me. She was trying to warn him. Trying to tell him not to open that door. Because whatever was driving that car wasn't the man standing at the window. It was something else. Something that needed to be invited in. I'm Sarah, and I worked the graveyard shift at a gas station just outside Boise, Idaho. This was back in 2018, and I'd been working there for about 4 months. The station was pretty isolated, just off the interstate with nothing around for miles. One night in October, I was working alone when the power went out around 2 a.m. Total darkness, except for the emergency lights over the exits. The register went dead. The pumps stopped working. Even my phone had no signal. I grabbed the flashlight we kept under the counter and called out to see if anyone was in the store. No answer. I was about to lock the front door when I heard the coolers in the back turn on. That didn't make sense because everything else was still dead. No lights, no register, but the coolers were humming. I walked to the back to check the breaker box. That's when I saw the handprints. Small handprints all over the cooler glass from the inside, like someone had been trapped in there, pressing their hands against the door. I opened the cooler and the handprints were gone. Just condensation on the glass, normal. I closed it and walked back toward the register. Behind me, I heard the cooler door open. I turned around. Nobody there. The door was swinging slowly, like someone had just walked through it. I shined my flashlight down the aisle. At the far end, standing in the darkness, was a boy, maybe 10 years old, wearing a red jacket. He wasn't moving, just standing there staring at me. I called out and asked if he was okay. He didn't respond. I took a step closer, and he took a step back, staying in the shadows. I asked where his parents were. He raised his arm and pointed at the cooler behind me. I turned to look. When I turned back, he was closer, much closer, only about 10 feet away now. I hadn't heard him move. No footsteps, no sound at all. His face was pale, his lips blue like he was freezing. I told him to stay where he was, that I'd call for help. He shook his head slowly. Then he whispered something I could barely hear. "I'm so cold." I grabbed a jacket from the lost and found box and held it out to him. He didn't take it. He just kept staring at me with those dead, frozen eyes. Then he pointed at the cooler again. I looked at the cooler door. The handprints were back. Dozens of them, all over the glass. Small hands pressing outward from inside. When I looked back at the boy, he was right in front of me. I could see frost on his eyelashes. His skin was gray, his fingernails black. He reached out and touched my hand. His fingers were ice cold, so cold it burned. I jerked away and dropped my flashlight. In the darkness, I heard him whisper again, "Help me get warm." The flashlight rolled across the floor, and I could see him in the spinning light. He was walking toward the cooler. He opened the door and stepped inside. Then he turned around and looked at me one more time before the door swung shut. I ran to the front of the store and didn't stop until I was outside. The power came back on 10 minutes later. Everything went back to normal. When I finally went back inside, I checked the cooler. The glass was covered in frost on the inside. And written in the frost, like someone had traced it with their finger, were 2 words: "Still cold." The next morning, I asked my manager about the breaker box. He said it was inside the walk-in cooler in the back. The cooler that hadn't worked in over 3 years. The one we kept locked because the latch was broken from the inside. I quit that day. Someone else can work that shift. Someone else can see the handprints. Someone else can meet the boy in the red jacket who died in that cooler in 2003. Locked inside during inventory. Freezing to death. Still looking for warmth. 15 years trapped in a broken cooler. The boy didn't want to hurt Sarah. He just wanted warmth. But when you freeze to death, the cold never stops. He's still in there, still freezing, still waiting. 4 gas stations, 4 night shifts, 4 warnings. Marcus saw a woman still drowning after 15 years. Rachel watched something touch her that only cameras could see. David met people who vanished like they were never real. Sarah found a boy who died begging for warmth. The next time you're alone at night, pay attention to the cameras showing things that aren't there, to the sounds that don't make sense, to the people who appear when they shouldn't, because sometimes the dead don't rest. Sometimes they're still working their shift, still waiting for someone to see them. If these stories disturbed you, hit like and subscribe. 2 more videos are on your screen right now. Choose wisely, little ravens. Not everyone who asks for help is still alive.